Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom, and today we're talking about what makes Andromeda great. While they've confirmed Mass Effect will return, BioWare remains under oppression from an unmerciful tyrant, and I admit I'm worried about where the series is going. That said, EA isn't even my biggest concern. I'm more worried about how they'll respond to the mixed reception of Andromeda and how that will affect their future games. Now, before you click away or dislike or leave an angry comment, hear me out. Andromeda had some top-notch lore, and I'm sincerely worried they'll look at the inordinate amount of people saying the writing was lazy or uninspired. Guys, the kett, an amalgamation of thousands of conquered species across the galaxy, taking the valuable genes and incorporating it into themselves to make themselves biologically perfect, treating that practice religiously to the point of seeing themselves as divine and worshipping their leaders, choosing the worthy out of species and exalting them while exterminating or enslaving the rest that they deem lesser. The Archon, so infatuated by the Remnant that he abandons protocol, which is practically heresy to their society, and his own people start turning against him, yet retaining their unflinching sense of superiority and keeping to what they believe is a holy mandate. The Angara, a species with a culture that flows like music, widely sharing their emotions, being raised in huge families that are practically communities in themselves, storing electrostatic in their bodies and discharging it at will the way we would use biotics, and their health being heavily reliant on sunlight. Their language and phrases perfectly reflect their culture, and their diversity of views are so believable. The Remnant, technology so advanced we can barely comprehend the scope of it. Technology so advanced they were creating organic life with cloned bone and tissue, like how we would create AI with metal and code. Creating a terraforming network to make each planet a paradise, yet still ending up being driven off or killed by whatever deployed the Scourge, a twisting mass of dark energy that practically poisons the cluster. How in God's name can you tell me this writing is lazy or uninspired? This is some of the best sci-fi I've ever seen. I think the dialogue could have been a lot better, and the presentation could have used some improvement, I'm not arguing that. But just looking at the lore for what it is, I don't understand how anyone could find this underwhelming. I'm not saying Andromeda is the best, there are a lot of areas that could have been better, and I'm sure will be in the future. I'm just genuinely afraid the developers will look at all that amazing lore and think, the fans didn't like that, so let's make it more bland. Maybe not in those words, but this is a real concern. This has happened before. Now, I won't ignore the similarities to the original trilogy. The biggest one is probably the kett being similar to the Reapers, but I think they are very different. The Reapers are enforcers of the cycle. They do what they do because they think they have to. They harvest the advanced races and leave the younger ones alone so they can flourish. The Reapers do this so life can continue. The kett do what they do because they see themselves as divine. Where the Reapers take some species and add tech to their bodies to fashion them into infantry, they're just tools. The kett exalt those they deem worthy and treat them as brothers in their shared divinity. That's what exaltation means, elevating them to a higher purpose. It's a religion. Of course, forcefully changing other species is still fundamentally the same as what the Reapers do. Yeah, I groaned about that at first too. Like, oh, okay, we're doing this again. But looking below the surface to their motivations and methods, they are extremely different. The kett focus on biology. They see machine intelligence as an abomination. They don't harvest advanced species, they select valuable genes and steal them. They look at others the way we would alien technology, trying to figure it out, see if we can use it for ourselves. The Reapers don't discriminate that way. For that matter, the kett take any race, not just the advanced ones. As for the Remnant, I'll admit the first time I played Andromeda and saw the Remnant, I thought, okay, so these are the new Protheans. But really, beyond being extinct or absent, what do they really have in common? I mean, they're both mainly plot devices, but serve entirely different purposes. And then there's the characters. Grandpa Drac, Vetra, Suvi and Callow, even Liam and Cora. Apparently a lot of people found Liam childish and naive. I would disagree with him being childish, but I can kind of see the naive thing. But that's more than okay in my opinion. I mean, characters have flaws, you know? That's okay. You can not enjoy his character, but it bothers me when people say he's a bad character. And that extends to all sorts of characters, not just in Andromeda. And everyone likes to make fun of Cora for how she talks about being an Asari huntress. She doesn't actually bring it up that much, and when she does, it makes sense. That was a big part of her life. They were the people that nurtured her biotics, made her feel welcome. It's well established in lore that Asari commandos have such strong discipline, so of course she's going to keep falling back on that. And more on the characters, even beyond your squad, I think most of the characters were a pleasure to meet. Everyone from Avela and Governor Shai to the nurse in the medbay and random Krogan at the colony or people on the Nexus. Most of these are on par with the original trilogy. Some are even better. And it's not like the original trilogy was perfect in that regard. I'm not saying the characters are perfect, and you certainly don't have to agree with me. I'm just telling you my opinion. People complain about too many side quests, and I think what they're usually referring to is the stuff in this category that requires you to hunt down random objects. Those are the ones I mostly ignored, despite being a completionist. I'll agree those maybe should have been dropped. But I thought the vast majority of side quests were well thought out and had good characters. Maybe a little too many fetch quests, but I don't remember being bothered by that while playing, so they must have done something right. I've also heard complaints about the dialogue wheel, and people being upset that they took away Paragon and Renegade. I like this better, because it encourages more diversity and gives you more agency as to who Ryder is. In the original trilogy, Paragon and Renegade were so different in tone, we were all, for the most part, choosing one or the other with a few small exceptions, especially since your Charm and Intimidate options were reliant on that. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm genuinely confused as to why so many people hated this game. If I seem like an apologist, I don't know what to say. I liked the game. I'm surprised so many people didn't. I think a lot of arguments I've heard are contrived. You know, people compare this to the very first game, and I think what most people mean by that is that it's an introduction to a new and expanding universe. I definitely agree, it carries that same kind of vibe. I do want to talk a little about choices. Another common complaint is that the choices don't matter. I don't know what people are talking about. Have they ever mattered? At the very least, in the same game? Maybe 3, but the point is to make you think about how you're affecting the universe, not just the game you're playing. In fact, a lot of these choices I think are better done than the original trilogy. The original choices were mostly black and white, Paragon or Renegade. Andromeda has much more gray. For example, Sloane or the Charlatan. That is a great gray area choice. Or choosing the Solarian Pathfinder or the Krogan Scouts. Yes, more of this gray area stuff. The last complaint I've heard about the game I wanted to talk about is pacing. It seems a lot of people didn't feel like there was any pressure to progress the story. I would disagree. Tens of thousands of people needing you to find them a home before they starve or are annihilated by the kett is pretty decent motivation, especially since they clearly can't take care of themselves. In fairness, they weren't trained to make something from nothing. Even if they were, we needed Sam to make the remnant work, and make the worlds habitable. While I'm here, I should say that some of these messages you can find here at the first 2 outposts really made me tear up. Not just here either, the written notes in general were good pretty much everywhere. I mean, not all of them, but enough for me to notice. I don't remember the original trilogy having too many that affected me the same way. Speaking of written stuff, the emails from your squad and the logs you can find in the crew quarters were really well made. I liked reading about the things the squad were doing together, and I admit I wanted to be a part of it. But back to pacing. I distinctly recall one of the main complaints about Mass Effect 3 was feeling too much pressure to do the main quest. Like, players said they felt like they were leaving the galaxy to burn if they went and did some side quest. I think if there even is a sweet spot for main quest urgency, I think Andromeda got close. The game was more about exploration anyway. Shepard's was the story of a soldier, Ryder's is the story of an explorer, and their stories were written with that motif in mind. Did they nail it with Ryder? No, not quite. It was still a good story. And I feel like that's the description of Andromeda. Did they nail it? No. Was it a great game? Hell yeah. It's maybe a little too long with all the side quests, but at least they had substance. That's more than can be said for a lot of games. The story was just as mysterious as it should have been, and I love how they reward you for exploring with more story. The characters were mostly engaging. They gave us plenty of culture and mystery. Of course I wanted more, but I have a fairly good feeling we'll get that in the future. In my video for how the Geth could return in Andromeda, I talk about how they would have wanted to see how life developed without the interference of the Reapers, including the mass relays and other technology they left behind. That's the sort of thing I want more of in Andromeda. The Angara and Kett are a good start, and I'm excited to see what's next. But I think that's where I'll wrap this up. Be sure to leave your own opinions in the comments. All I ask is that we please be respectful to each other. If some of you sincerely do not like the game, that's okay. But for those of us who do, or at least see the potential, let your voice be known. Don't let Andromeda die. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you later.